Hello and welcome to Around the Lens, episode 97. That's right, number 97. We're just 3 episodes away from the big 100. In case this is your first time listening or watching, let me tell you that we are the internet's only live roundtable discussion podcast that talks exclusively about the world of visual journalism. So if you have an interest in photojournalism, broadcast journalism, and the news, gear, and topics related to those subjects, then we think you'll enjoy the show. Whether you love or hate what we're doing, please take a moment to give us a rating on the iTunes or Google Play stores, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. If you'd like to continue the conversation, you can always go to our Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram pages. I guarantee you that we look at every comment, review, and post that you submit, and we'll make changes accordingly. Won't we, Zach?
Well, promises I don't necessarily like, but
Indeed. No promises. Finally, you can find links to all our social media and everything we talk about on the show over at www.aroundthelens.com. Before we introduce our panelists, I just want to introduce my co-host, Zach Roberts. Zach, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad.
Good to see you. I was going to introduce our panelists, but we seem to have lost one. Vamp, quick. Zach, how was Comic-Con?
Well, I'll try pulling in the other one. Why don't you introduce our one guest we have on now?
I'd like to introduce our first panelist and hopefully our next panelist, a newcomer by the name of Jennifer McClure. Jennifer, please tell our audience a little about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is exciting.
We're glad to have you. And you want to tell us your connection to the show, even though you're a newcomer?
Yes. Well, Brad Smith introduced us. He's been on your show before, and I'm delighted. I love what I've seen so far. So I am a photographer, fine art, a little editorial, a little documentary, a little crossover between all of them. And I'm here to talk about building community, right?
Great. Yeah, you actually built a community, right? I mean, you're pretty much the expert in building communities, right?
I don't know if I'm an expert. I learned from other people, that's for sure. But yeah, I started a women's photography group here in New York City. The intention was just to have a few people get together. And I put something out on Facebook. I said, hey, is anybody interested? Maybe get together once a month, every other month, just hang out and network and chat, share stories, share connections. And the response I got, I just did this on Facebook, and the response I got was pretty huge right off the bat. So we started a Facebook group. And actually people from all over the country, even all over the world, have joined the group. I think we're up to almost 1,200 members in the group. And we use that as a platform just for sharing questions, sharing stories, sharing ideas, sharing things that are relevant, asking questions. And then we meet in person. Originally, the idea was to meet once a month, but that's just nearly impossible. We're all too busy. So we try to meet every other month, or we try to center it around events that are happening here in the city. Photoville, we had a couple meetups for that. We always have a holiday party. But it is just to get together and meet people and to network, because you never know where your next job is going to come from, or the next article, or an opportunity might not be right for someone else, but they remembered meeting you at an event and they passed that along your way.
Absolutely. Did you said it kind of grew very quickly, but did you say like how long it went from its inception to its current 1,200 member capacity right now, or membership?
It's been a little over 2 years.
Okay, great.
And it is kind of gathering steam and growing slowly. And we're not the only group doing this sort of thing. And I wouldn't say we all support each other. It's a different platform for different things. And the more that one group grows, the more another group will grow. Like there's another group called Women Photograph that was started by Daniela Zoffman, and that's more of a database for jobs. There's another group called Women in Photography New York City that was started by Amy Elkins and Cara Phillips, and that is a fine art database, although I believe they have editorial as well. And so I think it's great that all of these groups are growing simultaneously, and women join more than one group, and it's a great network.
That is great. That is great. There she is, our second panelist, returning panelist, and also first ever panelist we ever had on Around the Lens, Julie Dermansky. Julie, tell us a little about yourself.
Well, let's see. I'm a photojournalist, a videographer, and a writer these days, and I'm based just outside of New Orleans. And I cover all kinds of issues with social justice and the environment. And I think community building is great.
Excellent. Great. Well, obviously, Jennifer was talking to us about the community that she built. Jennifer, can you go into a little more detail about what you all talk about on your group and when you meet up, and also how did you build your group? Like, did you use any sort of advertising platform, or was it all just basically word of mouth?
It's pretty much all word of mouth. I've never advertised anywhere, and I didn't realize there was so much of a need for it until I started it, and it seemed like something people were really hungry for. So we started out, we just had, I had no agenda. I just threw together a meeting, and I got a space, and I said, we're all going to meet here. And everybody showed up, and we just introduced ourselves, and we talked. And since then, we've had all different sorts of meetings. We've had a couple panel meetings. We had, for instance, a meeting on contracts where we explained contracts to everybody. And we had a lawyer, and we had an agent, and we had a photographer. And it's just a way that people, I do try to keep it free. I don't want there to be any charge for it at all. I just want it to be a place where people can come and learn and help each other out. We've also had other meetings where we've gone as a group to visit art galleries and walked around, and then sat down and compared notes on what we learned and who we knew. And we've also done photo walks. It's been a pretty big variety up until now. And we do try to share it through schools as well. We'd like for people to know they have a place where they can go if they do have questions.
And have you had any interesting stories or interesting things that have come out of the group? Things that maybe you didn't even anticipate happening? Perhaps perhaps all the group came to the aid of someone who was under distress and perhaps needed money, or you all work together to crowdsource an answer to a solution. Any sort of like interesting things that you've observed in your group since you've created it? Anything like that?
Nothing so much like that, but it is just more of a place to go for questions. There are a lot of photo groups out there right now, and sometimes you ask a question and it's not necessarily supportive, the answers that you might get. There's a lot of instantly, why do you not know that already? And this tends to be just a more supportive environment and a gentle explanation. And, we also have had things happen, like I know somebody posted who works for the New York Times for the Metro section, and they needed some story ideas. And, we didn't come out and say, this person works for this organization, you can get your story here. It was just a general inquiry. And then out of the responses, there were several stories that were published then in that section. I feel like I can say this now because they no longer work there. I don't want them to get inundated. But, it's that sort of a networking experience.
Now, photojournalism is kind of portrayed, and at least in my experience, very much a boys' club. How has the group helped? How is your kind of because women photography? How is it kind of hopefully brought in more new it wouldn't be new voices for photography, would it be new eyes for photography? Have you seen people having having issues with it being more of a boys' club, or like how are they actually dealing with the fact that they walk into if they are lucky enough to walk into actual newsroom, as we're all freelancers nowadays, that almost every person in the room is percentage-wise a guy.
Well, I mean, our group isn't 100% photojournalists. I know that some of the other groups out there are photojournalists, and I feel like they might deal more with this sort of a situation. If that makes sense. We have everything, like fine art, editorial, documentary, and it's not so much, you know, instructionals and how do you handle yourself, but certainly we've had people ask questions to the group. You know, how do I approach editors? You know, as a woman, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I deal with it when this is said to me? And these questions can get answered within the group.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, completely.
Yeah.
Do you find that the you know, I went to college for fine art photography, but never really went into it. What do you feel like? Like, obviously, it's not even the same as photojournalism, where there's actually like fine art photographers don't show up at the news event or something like that. There's not really, maybe a museum or something, but is it, you know, how do you feel like the breakdown is? Is it, you know, diverse, or is it kind of the same deal with photojournalism is?
The breakdown is very much the same deal as photojournalism. And that's the funny part, is that you look at all of these different fields and the statistics are remarkably the same as terms of representation. You know, it's around 20%, which is discouraging. And and it is, you know, recently PDN approached me about doing an article about, you know, harassment in the photo industry. This was, I believe, the October issue of PDN. And they did a great job of going everywhere. And, you know, they talked to journalists and fine artists, and the breakdown is the same. And I remember saying to them then, you know, I'm not sure what I can tell you. It's a, you know, I feel like photojournalists experience they get harassed.
Yeah. I thought I had it over here. Sorry. I have all my PDN issues right over here. Sorry about that.
Yeah, but they literally, they deal with people who say, we're not sure you can do this job. We don't know if we want to send a woman into this environment. And, you know, when they're at an event, they've got men pushing them out of their spaces. And in the fine art world, it's a different sort of discrepancy. You know, I did a breakdown once where I looked at all of the fine art galleries and I looked at their artist rosters and I broke them down to get a percentage to see what the percent, you know, how many women are in these galleries. And for a lot of the major blue chip galleries, it is 10%. For some of the medium and smaller ones, you can get 50%. But even in museums, it's 10 to 20% of women getting solo shows at the major museums.
Wow.
And it's a different form of discrimination, but it's definitely underrepresentation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of that discrimination comes at the hands of, like, you know, as we've seen in Hollywood, men in power, or is it just there's sort of a misconception, perhaps, about, you know, I don't know, or there's just a general discrimination amongst women in general?
It's fascinating because a lot of the people in charge of museums are still men. That is changing. Women are better represented now in curatorial positions, but they're still not the ones at the very top all the time. That is changing. The interesting part is that, and this has been noted by many people before, not just by me, but a lot of photo editors are women. So it's curious as to why women are underrepresented in the field.
I don't know. Like, I guess we have to have some female photo editors on and talk about that perspective.
Perhaps. And again, who knows where that comes from? Does it come from the top? You know, in museums and galleries, you know, it's hard. In galleries, ultimately, it's dictated by who's buying art and what are they buying. So why aren't people buying more art by female artists?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't either. These are all interesting questions.
Especially considering, was it number 2 or number 3 is Cindy Sherman is the top.
Yeah.
I don't even know what her last photo went for. It's
crazy. Yeah.
Ridiculous figures. Behind, I always forget that other photographer, but anyway, but I mean, like a handful.
Was it Gursky?
Yeah, Gursky. Yeah, there you go. He's number 1 with, like, I think he's got like a 7-figure or more than that, would be 8-figure purchase of a single image, which is
Wow.
just mind-blowing to me, especially considering it's a digital print too, which is
I'm sure these are reflective of the type of conversations that you have in your group, correct?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
We've all built groups. Well, I know I built groups. I built groups for this website, for my neighborhood. Obviously not as big as your group. I know, Zach, you've built multiple groups online as well. Julie, have you built any groups in your time?
No, I'm kind of not a group builder. I just help people randomly.
There you go. Well, what I wanted to say, since, I know we've all, obviously the three of us have had group building experience, that you sometimes get that element in there that you don't want in there, those trolls, if you will, or those people who are instigators of negative conversation or, whatnot. How do you deal with that? We'll start with you, Jennifer. Have you had that experience, and have you dealt with it?
We haven't had a lot, and I feel like we've tried very hard to make it known that this is a place of support. It's about supporting women. It's not about bashing men. It's not about being negative. It's not about pointing out everything that's wrong. It's a lot about how do we make it better? What is working? What are we doing right? How do we move forward based on that?
How about you, Zach? What do you do when you get some trolls in your group? Oh no, Zach is not.
I'm sorry about that. I was coughing before, so I hit my mute button. Now with social media, it's more difficult and less difficult at the same time. Like you can literally just mute, you can just block somebody out of if it's just a Facebook group or whatever, even though trolls have a really good way of kind of figuring out a way of getting back in there or causing a thing. And, back in person, you tell somebody off one time, back when I was an activist way back in the day, but during many moons ago, during the Bush administration, when we were dealing with so much of this before. But yes. Yeah. The now sane Bush, which is kind of weird to say that everybody's looking up to him. But back then, it was just, basically being able to tell people one person off at one point if they go too far or whatever. And usually they don't come back. We luckily never had anybody ever try to come back after a meeting or something like that. I mean, nowadays, what I do when it comes to, community is, especially since I live in upstate New York, most of my friends that work in this industry obviously live nowhere near me. New York, DC, St. Louis, New Orleans with Julie, and mostly what we do is we talk a lot on, whether it be in small groups, private messenger, and just on Facebook and messaging, kind of talking about coverage. We give each other pointers on what story's up next. If we saw something that's happening in their area, you send a note or vice versa, or we make, just basically one of the big things is there's this big protest happening or a big event. I don't know if it's even a protest in Tennessee. White supremacists are meeting up again. And so it's, kind of a conclave of all the people that went to Charlottesville. So we end up meeting up again and kind of, to some weird level, sharing notes on, well, what are you hearing? What's going to happen? Do I need to bring what gear do I need to bring? Handful of us have cars, so we're the ones that pick people up at, just kind of planning and general thing. And it's usually never more. I don't think I've ever had more than maybe during the conventions. I had 8 or 10 people on a single group. But for the most part, it's just kind of behind the scenes organizing and kind of talking about, oh, you're pitching to this person. Don't worry, I won't pitch to that. Just kind of to some level, not trying to step on each other's toes. Since, especially, I work more in the progressive news world than most everybody else I know. So it's just a matter of, to some level, not stepping on each other's toes and not, trying to, cause any more problems than we already have in the industry, and helping each other more than anything else. I mean, the one good thing about social media, or maybe not the one good thing, but one good thing about it is the fact that you're able to have more private conversations. I know a lot of groups, when it comes to you know, whether it be women in business, women or whatever, they have these like kind of lockdown groups that are invite only, which are super helpful. You can actually have a conversation with multiple people. I've been in a couple of those for journalism, for other things. And it's like, it's really nice. You're able to kind of vent to a group of people and not actually have to be in like the same room with each other, which obviously, as we're all freelancers, you know, even when we live in the same city, it's very difficult to get together. And as you, I'm sure, know, actually trying to herd photographers of any sort together is like herding cats on LSD sometimes. Believe me. You know, and try to get people to actually decide at a meeting time, you know, the same bar or whatever, just like forget it. We'll just meet on Facebook and talk on Facebook and be able to, you know, and even discuss things like that's, you know, the fact that like there's Tumblr pages now where, you know, we share who pays, who doesn't, what rates different magazines are giving. And that all started off of just one person putting up I think it was a Google Sheets document and just saying, you know, shoot me notes, I'll add in whatever you got, or just literally a public thing where you add in your personal experiences. And I think that's the only way kind of as we're going forward, where none of us all work in, you know, in the same place. You know, it's not like everybody lives in New York City anymore. Like I know a lot of photojournalists who in the last like 5 or 6 years have left New York City, not to move to a different city for a different job, but literally just left like me, where I'm like, well, I don't have a staff job and I don't have you know, I'm not a permalancer like, you know, a lot of people are. So I'm not making any money covering, you know, fires and, you know, you know, I don't know, DWIs. So there's no reason for me to live in this horribly expensive town. So I'll move somewhere else, you know, and it's able to kind of connect us together in a way that even when we all lived in the same city, we weren't really connected. So,
yeah. I never heard the term permalancer. That's a new one.
Yeah, well, that's what I think we talked about it last week with Bob Stolark of the New York Times. That's actually one of the problems. He was a permalancer, is the quote unquote phrase, at least. I don't know whether I think it's not an official phrase, but something we would say. But basically, if you have a place that you're continually freelancing for and getting paid for, but you're not on a salary and you're not you don't have a contract of any kind. And that's why my understanding, reading one news article about his lawsuit, but that's my understanding on why he's suing currently. And I hope he wins, because
yeah,
Bob's great.
Well, hopefully we can have him on the show at some point. We can talk about his experience when he's able to, whenever that might be. I don't know. Lawsuits, I hear, take a long time.
Yeah.
Right, Julie?
Not if you settle, they don't.
That's right. We can't talk about that, nor will we.
Well,
you don't want to get
thing with any lawsuit. If it's settled, then you're not going to hear too much directly from the parties involved, because when you settle, it's always non-disclosure.
Yep.
Yeah. I got to imagine, I mean, you know, you always hear about people settling all the time. And I guess, you know, when you compare the years potentially of what could take, you know, to go through a courtroom process, I imagine the settling process is much more attractive, because it's like you get to a point, you kind of win, you know, at least personally, you get the results of winning without having to go through the hassle and sort of pain of actually winning, right? Is that kind of the benefit of a lawsuit, or I'm sorry, of a settlement?
Well, you know, I would think in most lawsuits in the photo world, one person's right, one person's wrong, because the issues are pretty clear. Like if it's a copyright case, someone stole your copyright or they didn't. So I'm speaking about really simple things. And even Robert's case, just from what I read of it and knowing someone else something similar like that happened to, clearly the company was taking advantage and bending the rules. And, you know, he went along with it, and they were cheating the government. They weren't paying federal taxes. You know, that's probably what happened. I don't know. I'm not there. But these kinds of cases aren't that complicated, so I think they tend to settle, you know.
Yeah.
But then, you know, the rest of the world, people just settle because to avoid the court costs. So even if there's just an illusion that they've done something bad, but I can't imagine you'd settle if you didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
No, there's no one in the news media currently that did that and that is claiming that he did nothing wrong. There's no one at all in the news media right now.
You know, going back to the groups development,
wrong, he claimed he didn't do it at all, but you know, whatever.
you know, going back to groups, I want to ask you, Jennifer, how do you engage with and keep your group interested in kind of, you know, coming back and growing? Do you have anything? Obviously, you do the bi-monthly, the bi-mon, sci-fi con, the bi-monthly get-togethers. But you know, are you doing anything proactively to keep your group engaged, or do you just let the group sort of engage with itself?
Well, in the beginning I did, and now the group seems to be going pretty well on its own.
Yeah.
Like I don't have to, and that's kind of what I wanted. I just wanted to start this thing and then have it go on its own. You know, I don't think any group should be personality driven. I think it needs to be its own unit. But what we've been doing lately is an Instagram.
Okay.
Which has been really fun. And, you know, I don't invite people to do it. I just ask them to put themselves on a list. And it's really fun just making sure all these different types of journalism and art and editorial get represented.
Yeah, so that's great. So people submit your stuff and you put it on Instagram?
Right, right. And we've been in talks about trying to figure out how to have an exhibition, which becomes its own separate beast in getting people involved. Do you have it curated? Do you accept everybody? Because when you have too many members, it's kind of hard to have everybody up there.
Yeah. And plus, too, the cost associated with that. I mean, we start doing something exhibition, you have to talk about, obviously, if you're going to, you know, take on the cost yourself, the cost of printing and, you know, hosting the event, or if you're going to do something like a crowdfunding thing. I mean, how do you even, that's when you start getting into more complicated group dynamics. But it's interesting. You know,
that's where it gets a little crazy. And again, I have been trying to keep this free. You know, I don't want it to become an association where you have membership dues, because I would like it to be available. Because photographers don't have any money. We're all broke, you know?
Yeah.
We have enough money to buy a sweet DSLR and a sweet set of lenses and the top end memory cards.
Yes.
And a high-end laptop.
Yes.
But we don't have money for dues or anything else like food or anything, housing. We do have money for all that
we
other
have available credit lines to buy all those things. That doesn't mean we have money for it.
Of course. No, totally. I understand.
Yeah.
So, Jennifer, what are you going to do when your group like balloons to 12,000 or 120,000? I mean, do you see anything changing or adjusting as your group continues to grow? Obviously, I'm sure you'd like it to grow to much larger than it is, right?
I mean, I would love for it to grow. I don't know, 12,000 seems so crazy.
You'll be there before you know it.
But even if you have that many members and users, like honestly, how many are active all the time?
Right.
You know?
But I mean, could you see yourself, you know, now that you have like following, would you see yourself, you know, trying to motivate that following to do like go in a direction perhaps, or, you know, utilizing them to support a cause or make a change or something like that? Is that someplace where you'd like to go with a group in the future?
These are all great questions. And the way I've been handling the group is just kind of waiting for the next thing to happen and then seeing. But it is wise to think about the kind of direction. The main thing I would want the group to do is just show more work.
Yeah.
By women. Women have amazing work, and just to provide a platform for it to get out there in any way possible, whether it's a show, whether it's online, whether it's print, whether it's connecting editors with working photographers or curators or writers, you know, just to get all this work out there, to get eyes on work. That to me is the most important thing, however that happens. And I would love to have, you know, a committee of people helping. And there are people who help. It's not just me out there all the time. You know, I have someone looking for exhibition spaces right now who's volunteering, you know. It's been amazing. But to have more of a system in place, I think would be ideal as their group grows, an infrastructure.
And you know what would help pay for that system? Dues. Just kidding.
Oh, I know. Sponsorship. How about sponsorship?
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
You could be sponsored by Around the Lens.
We have no money.
We need sponsors. Sponsor us.
Right.
Julie, have you heard of Jennifer's group, or do you have any interest in being in it yourself?
I'll join it. Yeah, you know, this, I mean, women have always been second-class citizens. We don't even have full rights by law, if I know this correctly or not. But I try not to focus on that at all. And one of the funniest offhanded compliments I get sometimes is people said, "Oh, I thought your work was a guy's." So, I mean, I just go out there, and when guys try to push me out of position, I got some elbows here, and I use them. And but I mean, it's undeniable what's going on. The funniest thing was that Nikon ad.
Oh my gosh!
That the thing is that they even
30 men. They couldn't find one woman.
But that they even tried to defend it. You know, that's what the issue is. Like, they could have just used that as a perfect opportunity. Like, we really did that, and we're going to do something about it, and just done a new one with all Nikon women users, because there are plenty of women photojournalists out there, and I am part of a different Facebook women's group, so I'm sorry I didn't know about yours, Jennifer. And yeah, I mean, if anything, I'm guilty enough spending too much time online, but I tend to help any photographer that reaches out. Zach can attest to that.
Yes, very much so, yeah.
So since we're on the topic of Facebook groups, I'm just going to throw out the ones I join or I've joined. If you all want to add and tell the audience what Facebook groups you are part of, I'm sure they would appreciate that. You know, of course, I'm a member and owner and founder of Around the Lens podcast group. Go on there and discuss the show topics. And then, of course, I've got a Panasonic GH5 group. In case you didn't know, I own and operate the Panasonic GH5 camera system, the best camera system in the marketplace right now. 4/3 for life. Beyond that, I love the Photo Brigade forum. I think that's a great place for that's been really a vibrant community for discussion and growing exponentially. And then I got some other public affairs sites, some community sites, Newhouse, my old alma mater. And then that's about it for me. How about you, Zach? What do you got?
I'm not like a huge. There's the NPPA Mid-Atlantic region, which I think I'm wrong. I'm actually wrongly added in it because I'm not actually in the Mid-Atlantic region for the PPA. But I know a bunch of people there. Yeah, Photo Brigade as well. And oh God, what's the Plan B? What's your Plan B? Which that group's been written about a lot, about basically, it's kind of it's occasionally a depressing group because it's basically a bunch of people who have either been laid off or potentially looking for new work outside of journalism, and kind of a discussion in that way. And it's a really great group because you kind of talk about, there's a lot of people on there that love journalism so much and like kind of trying to figure out how to get that next step that's essentially for a lot of people like not PR, which, nothing against if you're in PR, but like going from journalism, it's just, because sometimes seen as within journalism as you're kind of going to work for the other side. But yeah, that's, I think that group's like enormous now because it's gotten like huge amount of press. So, but yeah.
All right. Jennifer.
Well,
Julie?
Women's Photo Alliance, and Photo Brigade. I adore Photo Brigade. I think they're amazing. We just did a panel there yesterday on portraits, actually, and I moderated the panel, and I decided this time that I was going to pack it with women. And I wasn't.
I saw a little bit of that. I didn't see the whole thing, but I did saw a little bit of it. It was very well done.
I thought we're not even going to mention that it's women portrait photographers. There have been panels with male photographers for years, and no one says male portrait photographer. So I love.
Yeah, you didn't couch it as being like the female perspective on portrait photography. It was just happened to be women who were portrait photographers.
Exactly. And we'll keep doing stuff like that until it's normalized.
Right.
Like not every time, obviously. I'd love to get to a point where it is 50-50 all the time without question. So I love Photo Brigade. I think they're great. And ICP, I'm in a couple of the groups for there because I did a lot of classes there. Flack Photo Network. I think those are the big ones.
Okay.
Those are ones I go back to.
Julie, anything from you before we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, I part of the photojournalist cooperative, and what is that photo woman group I'm in? It's called Photo Women, but it's a private group. I think both of those you have to be invited to. And then I follow a lot of community groups who are about different environmental issues. So I always know what's going on in the fields that I'm covering. So those are the groups I check in with the most.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Well, that's it for photo groups. Let's move on to our next topic. It's all about news. And we're talking about something I think is kind of scary, but also exciting. It's about visual journalism, specifically, I think, the video side. So Adobe, the masters of a lot of different crafts, and which, by the way, I am officially leaving the Adobe camp starting on the 26th of October. I'm canceling my Adobe subscription, so I'm going to try going Adobe free with all my software. We'll see how well that goes. I'm going to try and go all free routes, by the way. So I don't know. If anything, I'll probably come back to like the Lightroom, Photoshop, the $10 a month thing, or whatever they offer. But I'm going to try and go completely Photoshop, Adobe, everything free, because I just trying to save that money. But anyways, Adobe has come out with a new sort of experimental thing called Cloak, which basically allows you to hide things in video. So you know how they have content-aware fill on photography. It's kind of like content-aware fill for video. And the demo of this is pretty amazing, where they essentially make a light pole in a shot that's in front of like another building just disappear in the video. And it's almost seamless. And, you know, I think this is amazing because it's, you know, this kind of technique or craft, you know, in like normal, if you were to do this manually, would take hours, hundreds of hours, depending on what you're trying to eliminate. And this does it in, you know, literally seconds. So I think that's amazing, but I'm also scared of what this is going to mean for the future of, you know, videography, because I think, you know, for the most part, we've had a kind of, you know, I would say a more of a trust in video. You know, a lot of times, at least, you know, the closer it is to like, let's say an event or whatnot, just because, you know, video editing itself is a very laborious task, as I mentioned. But if you have these sort of techniques that are now going to make it extremely fast and easy to make, you know, what I would say are, you know, damagingly ethical, you know, violations, if you will, you know, same type of ethical violations you'd see in a photo, but in video, I don't know what that means. That could be pretty scary for the craft, and, you know, kind of open video up to even more of the ethical sort of issues that have plagued, you know, photography in many years, since especially the advent of, you know, the digital computers and the photo editing and whatnot. But what do you all think of this? Is this something, are you scared about this? Is this nothing to worry about? Is this just a cool new piece of tech? What do you all think? Julie, what's up with you?
Well, I'm a bad person to ask because I try not to change operating systems, cameras, anything, because I hate learning the new stuff. Because once I dive in hard. So I'm stuck with the Lightroom and the Photoshop for now, and I haven't updated since they did that monthly thing. So it's just a matter of time before my computer makes me do it.
Do you do much video editing? Have you ever done any video editing?
No, I primarily just shoot and give it to somebody else. I do a little bit in iMovies, but no, I haven't gone that route yet. I stick with the writing and the photography and the shooting. That's now.
Okay. But I mean, do you think that this ability to eliminate stuff in a video, like doing it again, essentially the same thing you could do in a photo, I mean, do you think this is something to worry about, or is it just another interesting piece of technology?
Another piece of interesting technology. I mean, I'm interested why you know, what is the worry? I haven't been paying too much attention to it, clearly. But most new stuff, it can only add to your toolbox, no?
Okay, all right. Well, Jennifer, what do you think about this?
I mean, it's interesting. It would depend on what it's used for. I mean, if a news outlet is going to use that technology, that's disturbing. Because the way news is working these days is that people just throw out stories without any backup. and the public takes that story and develops a perception, and then by the time the original facts come out and it's proven wrong, it's too late, because you have people who are already stuck on the original idea. So if people are going to manipulate news video in that way, that could be problematic simply because of the nature of perception.
Right. I mean, you see it all the time, I think, in these sort of, like, I was watching a video the other day, somebody showed me, because they wanted to demonstrate, oh, look at that. It was a photo, it was a video that looked like, you know, it was shot with a handheld or a, you know, a cell phone nowadays, pointed out the airplane window at an airplane wing, and a drone flew into the airplane wing and like chipped off like a big chunk of the wing. And, you know, somebody wanted to show this at, you know, an event, because we were talking about the dangers of, you know, shooting with, you know, drones and aircraft and how they could strike each other, which actually did happen in Canada. But again, they were showing this video as kind of like, oh, look at the, you know, look at what could happen. And I was like, that looks too good. And then I looked into it, and it was created by one of these digital companies that creates these sort of viral videos. And I'm thinking, like, man, with this software, you know, this is obviously just, you know, one element of it, but you could do a lot with this if you really wanted to like mess with people. So, yeah. I mean, if you can do it in, you know, the time it takes to, you know, render and export a video and get it on the news the same day, ooh, man, that could be dangerous.
You could. I mean, in this, you know, in this day and age of fake news, people might create fake news with all of this stuff, which is a little scary.
Not only can they create it, but they can create it faster. That's the thing, you know.
Faster, exactly.
And like we always sort of, you know, glom to the speed at which stuff comes out tends to, you know, almost, you know, hold on to its credibility a little bit, you know, like, oh, this is the first reported sighting, you know, but then I don't know. Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, so there's two ways to look at this. Is that first, you know, people didn't think that man walked on the moon, even after seeing film of it, back before the technology existed pretty much to properly fake it. I mean, you could fake it a little bit. There's always these great conspiracies about Stanley Kubrick helping behind the scenes with NASA and everything like that. But now the problem with this. So my thing with that is that basically conspiracy theorists are going to conspiracy. They're gonna theorize and do what they do, no matter what.
Conspirators gonna conspiracize.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going for. So it's just like, it doesn't matter. I mean, if we remember after the Las Vegas shooting, like it was like 45 seconds after some of the initial videos came out of that, there was already conspiracies that there was a second shooter out of this.
I believe there were 7 shooters, right?
There's whatever. I mean, and you know, and one of the problems also is, you know, first reports are very often wrong, which is something we talked about on our episode when we talked about this episode. Is that so? Taking that and then the first videos and the first photos that come out are always suspicious because they don't have substantiation and they don't have other people backing them up with other photos and video. So this just adds, I think, one more level of like complete, oh dear God, I feel so bad for my friend Brooke, who is the managing editor of Snopes.com. Because now she has to deal with random. I mean, one of the big problems too is that if broadcast news tried to do this, they have to actually add some production level to it because there's a quality level to it and thing. Now you're looking at little tiny videos on your cell phone. You don't realize how easy it is to manipulate a photo and just remove somebody when it's only, you know, Instagram size, you know, it's what, 650 by 650 is. Now you're talking about cell phone videos that everybody across the planet has. So the video quality is already degraded. And so removing an object and kind of like making it, you know, look like, you know, the joke is always, you know, I took the photo with my potato, and, you know, being able to have that lower quality across the net. Now people are going to be able to fake a heck of a lot easier. And if this program comes down with your Adobe cloud, you're going to have not only the purposeful fakers out there that are trying to manipulate the news and create fake news, whatever, but also you're going to have people like the video of the drone flying into the plane that you saw, who are going to confuse things even more. You know, these billions of Onion style websites that are producing fake news to just like, haha, isn't it funny? And then in fact, it's, you know, terrifying because you see a link about it in your email from your uncle 3 days later saying, "Did you see what Obama just did?" Like he ran into the White House and started shooting up the place. Look at this video; it shows it. It's like that's what you're gonna have. And so I don't even know where to go with this, because I mean, on top of it, didn't we a couple weeks ago we talked about some Adobe program that they're working on. I think it was Adobe that's working on matching mouth and facial movements with voice and backwards. So you combine these like couple things together, and anybody with any knowledge of being able to do some basic video editing or just knowledge of these programs can create an entire scene based off of other video and throw it out there. And so now literally nothing can be trusted. And I mean, so now the fact checkers operations over at all the actual networks are going to have to be, and if they don't already have people that are experts in verifying video like on staff, then they're nuts. And I don't think that they actually do, because they get hit with this stuff all the time. But they really everybody needs to have one person on staff that basically their entire job is being able to look at like pixels and know whether it's been manipulated or not. Like,
well, but that's where there could be some kind of a switch back to professionalism, because then they have to, you can't wear all this fake stuff. It's been around. I mean, granted, this thing does sound horrible that you can fake it easier, faster, whatever. But if you fake it, then who's ever going to hire you or buy your stuff again? So could be a wonderful thing that they have to stop posting crap to stay credible and actually pay people. Not that I really think that will happen, but
exactly, yeah.
Oh, Julie. So naive.
Well, yeah, for breaking news, but I dare say though, for real news, photographers are always going to be used. Photojournalists are always going to be tapped, because you can't send an amateur into a difficult news gathering situation and know they're going to come back with the story. So I'm being negative, but not. I'm just more like about you can't compete with the cell phone stuff, and that's what has been the norm for so long. And now with all that mixing stuff, it could be a great backlash, because if people are actually editing this bad stuff already and making it fake, and then media who uses it get caught enough times, what's going to happen? There could be great backlash where they have to go back to people in the industry that have names that you can trust.
Wouldn't it be great if 5 years from now the greatest single skill that we all have as photographers, journalists, whatever, would be credibility? not getting the right photo, not whatever, but literally it would just be, well, he gets paid because he's really credible.
Perhaps we can all go to some certifying organization like doctors and a representative in Indiana or Illinois, I forget, is trying to certify journalists, and they'd have to go through the police department and have a background check and everything like that to be able to get their journalist license. So that is a bill that's going through either Indiana or Illinois, I forget which one, but yeah, I like it. And I just want to say, Zach brought up a very good point. The silver lining of all this is that it'll create jobs and pixel peepers. So there you go, Zach. Yeah. If anybody's hiring that job, Zach is, he's ready for that.
I don't know anything about that. I mean, that's like, this stuff is like, no, but it's actually really serious, because I know a little bit about, I know enough about, I try to keep my knowledge of Photoshop, not even Premiere or anything like that, or After Effects, very minimal, to keep myself ever out of any trouble. I literally couldn't, and my friend who's a graphic designer and a professional Photoshop person and Adobe certified and everything, laughs at my Photoshop attempts when I show them to her. But is that it's the fact that I know so little about how to do that sort of thing that, to me, it's part of my credibility. I couldn't fake a photo if I wanted to. I can crop it. I can take the photo in a particular way that may tell something else, but that's what every other photographer can do. And hopefully there are other photographers on the scene. but to actually delve in there and know it, that's where you need, like, hopefully the FBI has got people training people that can go work at NBC or whatever else and be able to be like, no, that's a fake. But we got the JFK documents coming out soon anyway, so we'll be going through that soon again. But
JFK 2. This time, we know what really happened. On a more serious note, with regard to detecting sort of image manipulation, I have to say the best source I've seen in my internet travels has been the crowd. You put something up on Reddit or someplace like that, and they will just destroy anything and bring out the pixels, and they'll show you exactly where, like, if you think an image is fake.
But the problem is that I've literally never seen an image that's been uploaded to Reddit or Imgur that hasn't been immediately, look at those pixels. Like, no matter, I've had images of my own been like, no, I seriously, I took that photo. I mean, I had the claims of my Charlottesville photo that went viral. You can go through the Twitter thread and there's at least a dozen or so people claiming that it was photoshopped. And I'm like,
oh my God,
I have 10 more photos. Really? I sat down that night. Like, I don't even know how I would do that. And also, why would I make it so blurry and low quality? I would make it much sharper.
Right, of course.
That's cover for the low quality. That's what it's all
about. There you go.
But right. Because I would need to prove that white supremacists would beat up black people, because that's the thing I would need to fake a photo for. But there's no, like I said before, there's no solution to people kind of claiming that it's a Photoshop, it's a fake, it's a whatever. It's going to be the only thing that can kind of sane people can stand by, and hopefully we can figure out a way to grow the number of sane people in this country. Go fight against that tide of insane people is literally credibility in journalism and kind of standing by. I mean, it's like every single time I hear a story about some photojournalist that manipulated a photo or whatever. I mean, like, I still remember that one guy over, it was one of the, because there's been several, but Israel, Gaza, a couple years ago, and he added clouds over Gaza, smoke clouds. And I'm like, there was already a ton there, and he literally just used a crappy clone tool, and you could literally, like, I could see it. It was so bad, but the photo went viral and everything like that. And then of course it went viral again because it proved that people were trying to manipulate the story against Israel. And then it went viral again, and it was this whole thing. And it's just like, every single time I see something like that, I don't even cringe for that one story. I cringe for the fact that there's at least a couple dozen people that now are like, well, there's literally no photos I can trust. I'm going to just go back to InfoWars and watch my Alex Jones, and I can't trust anything. So it's like,
yeah. All right. Well, anything else before we move on, ladies? Any other comments before we move on to our last topic this evening?
All good.
All right. So our last topic tonight is, of course, the gear. We're talking about DxO. Now, you may know about DxO if you're a camera nerd or a phone nerd. Like I am. Basically, they are the entity that sort of rates the quality of cameras. The Google Pixel 2 recently got the highest rating of any camera phone out there, at a 98. And Zach's beloved Nikon D850 got a 100. Top score out of that company. Well, did you know that DxO makes cameras too? Well, specifically a detachable camera attachment that goes onto a smartphone. So this is actually not the first one they've did. They're coming out with one. It's it attaches to the base of the camera. Now, they came out with one for the iPhone a little while back, about a year or so ago, and now they're coming out with one for Android that uses USB-C. So this is a neat little device, I think. You plug it into the base of your phone. Let me get a phone so I can show you, demonstrate. Plug it into the base of your phone here, and now you've got a little manipulatable camera module on there. So it seems pretty interesting. It's $500, so it's kind of expensive for what it is, I think. You could probably get a actual full dedicated DSLR with lens for that much, or at least a really high-end point and shoot. But if this is something that you want to, maybe get some better quality pictures out of your mobile phone, it's definitely an option. What do you think about this? Is this something you would use, Jennifer?
I think it's got some good possibilities. I actually have a friend who's a photo editor at Vogue.
Okay.
And so she's not taking the photos, obviously, but she is also feeding directly to their social media. So she'll throw one of those onto her phone and instantly shoot like a behind the scenes video to the Instagram.
Yeah.
So I think it could have some great uses for stuff like that if you're trying to do a little better quality on the fly.
No, I think it's great to integrate better quality with, I mean, all the capabilities that come with the cell phone. Because, I mean, you know, we obviously deride the fact that, you know, everybody has a camera in their pocket, and, you know, all these people are shooting photo and video and giving it away and taking our job, our gerbs. But you know, I think, you know, something that can enable at least higher quality, you know, not necessarily DSLR, but, you know, more closer to like a point and shoot, if not a more, you know, higher end point and shoot. I think that's not a bad thing, you know, in terms of overall mobility. Zach, are you for or against this camera attachment? Do you think it's a good idea or a bad idea?
I'm definitely interested in it. I'm also curious. I've been trying to read and see if anywhere whether this is DxO actually creating this thing, or it's like a Polaroid thing now where it's branded. And no one says anything about DxO actually having anything to do with creating it. Which, I mean, it seems like obviously they had something to do with it, but it's suspicious that there's not like a story about the guys that know how to rate your sensors and lenses and everything like that, expertise, spent time and developed this camera. Like, that's not part of the press release story of it. I mean, I'm loving the fact that it actually has, you know, a lot of built-in more manual and long exposure things. If it had, you know, a little bit higher sensor, and the video aspects are cool. I mean, for the fact that, you know, for people like your friend who's doing mostly social media. I mean, when I'm doing social media story, like more directly for social media, not for a news story, and kind of like using both photos for both the story and social media, I would love to have something better than even my Galaxy S8 Plus, which takes really great photos, but it still doesn't have a lot of the actual kind of the only things that you can get with something that has like an f8 1.8 lens and a bit more manual functions. So being able to do this without being able to actually link easily I have two D600s now, so being able to link my D600s to my cell phone to be able to automatically upload anything or live stream things, like this would be really something good as a additional thing to have in my bag. If I can't, either for both of them or just for a quick shot. I do worry though about the breakability of it, due to the fact that I know that there's so many things that rely off of like holding, like the fact that this can hold the cell phone out. Like I've seen plugs and things like that. That worries the hell out of me, that the entire weight on either way, and I'm sure it's not that heavy, but like how easy would it be to just go
Yeah, I know, right?
And that's, I mean, just, you know, just because of what I do, like anything that could get pulled off, ripped off, broken, whatever, really worries me in camera gear. And that's why like attachments for this, like this sort of thing worries me. I had a God, what was that? The Moto XG something or another Z, or whatever the hell it was called, Moto Z, which had a case, a magnet case that went on the back of the camera, or back on the, the back of the phone. And it had a zoom lens, and it had decent functionality, and it actually had like a camera that was there that uploaded the photos basically to the phone, as opposed to like the phone taking the photos through a lens or something like that, which I like that idea a lot more than I like it attaching to, especially in the iPhone now. The only thing that you can connect to the phone in any way, shape, and form is this one little thing. And now, can you charge? I mean, like, this is like one of the big problems was like, can you charge? Like, how long can you use the phone with this thing while you're streaming video or while you're doing video if you can't charge the phone through that device? Maybe like there's a lot of like functionality issues that I would have, but I like where they're going. I'd rather see it as a case rather than like an attachment, because also that would, to me, again, not kind of stop the breakability aspect of it, but also keep it a little bit more camera-like, because I actually hold it like this and, you know, be able to take a photo. Like that's how the Moto Z, I think it was, I had for like literally 2 days. I think I had the phone and it was just too heavy, but it's an interesting move.
You know, many moons ago, when the cell phone cameras, the smartphones, the iPhones and stuff started to come out and became popular, I immediately thought what would be a great idea is if you had a DSLR body and there was just an empty space where you could stick your phone into, and that's now your screen, you know, and you get all the functionality that comes with the phone, the wireless modem, the touch screen, a lot of functionality that a lot of cameras, you know, DSLRs in the space, you know, are just now finally adopting. But you have, again, it acts as your viewfinder, or, you know, you still have the viewfinder, but it's your preview screen. I always thought it would have been great to have a DSLR body that accepted, you know, multiple lenses and you know, had the form factor that you could just stick your phone into and had different mounts for different sizes phones. It never came about, but that's something that
connect this enormous block into the. Now, I mean, Samsung did a little bit with their phones. They had I think it was, I don't know if it was Wi-Fi connected or whether it was cell phone connected, but it was. They had great phones that were like really dedicated point and shoot cameras. I thought that was a neat idea. I wish it evolved, but it didn't sell. You know, nobody bought it. Yeah. That's why it kind of went away. But you know, that was kind of like my idea. But I think this sort of is a halfway measure towards there. Julie, you gonna pick up one of these?
My partner did. I don't know that brand that you have, but you know, the quality is phenomenal for video and photo of the attachment you got. That was about $500. So,
yeah.
But Zach nailed it. It needs to come with a case, because like when I do use an iPhone in the field, it's usually for the Weather Channel. And I mean, an attachment in the rain, you know, it's like, no. You really need some kind of case. That's a quick way to lose the $500.
Yeah, it won't hold up very well in a protest.
No, definitely not. And yeah, just in general, even, you know, but man, the quality, it was worth keeping and not returning. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're closing up to the show. Unless there's anything else either you want to mention about this camera attachment. If not, let's throw some shout outs here. Jennifer, is there anything you'd like to promote besides obviously your group? We will put the link in the show notes.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, we're trying to grow the Instagram, so it'd be lovely if people would follow there. It's WPA NYC. And again, the goal is just to get more eyes on more work.
Absolutely.
And Photo Brigade.
There you go. Julie, how about you? Anything you want to throw out there? Maybe a link on copyright law?
Yeah, well, everybody should definitely take care with their intellectual property. I'm a firm believer in watermarking, at least in a small way, because though you should go after people who do your work and potentially sue them, a lot of them are too small potatoes to make it worthwhile, and you can send letters and collect on some things when you're slow. And just put it as part of your business practice. But for like some small blogger or whatever, just watermark your picture so it makes it less desirable. Stop the flow of free content.
Definitely. All right. Well, Zach, got anything you want to throw out? Anything we knew about? Interesting stuff you found?
I think I just got announced. You should check out, because I think they're going to be making the announcement soon for the Photo DC awards. Was it again? I'm sorry. Photo DC Photo Week DC 2017. I actually got an honorable mention, which is one of the first times I've ever won or been honorably mentioned for a actual photo award, because I never actually submit to these things, but I actually submitted to this, so I'm very happy about that. But that's
congratulations, Zach.
So if you're down in DC, I think it's the second week in November. I think it's the 10th to the 17th. They're having a showing of everybody's photos and stuff like that. So
cool. Well, there you go. Go see Zach's work. published and on a wall, right?
Yep.
Sweet. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's it for our show this week. I want to thank our panelists, Jennifer and Julie, so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate your time, ladies. For Zach Roberts, I am David J. Murphy. This has been Around the Lens, episode 97, and we are out.